February 2020. Light rain, cloudy, then drizzle, rain, overcast. The title of the show is False Spring, which also is the name of the main work in the show. I mean, one of the works in the show. A sound and light installation that I started working on in January 2020. And it was an attempt to write down the weather every day. I just started noting the weather every day, sort of my experience of the weather, because I was thinking about the entity of weather as this kind of something very mundane and commonplace that everyone shares, and something you experience physically on your body every day, that sort of temperature, atmosphere, that and like a marking of time. Writing down the weather in your diary every day is sort of like way to mark the days passing, but how also weather today is such an unstable entity and has carries so much doubt and paranoia, and the language we use to describe it is so filled with like, is this normal or is that abnormal? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? And so I basically noted the weather from January to February, and then Corona happened, and this whole idea of observing something that is outside from the inside also shifted a lot. And even just the year 2020 and the repetition of the date itself carried a completely new meaning, used to describe extraordinary situations related to illness or something incredible happening, or to time, or to being under a threat. For example, I have worked with eyewitness accounts, how people immediately after an event, when interviewed, try to put words to that thing that they just saw, that they'd never seen before. And I think that in art you try to, like, you know, the people who are really good with words or really good with the material manage to give some kind of higher, let's say, formulate some beautiful image of something that is quite commonplace and existential. But sometimes also it is the really banal and simple, quote-unquote, words or languages that are filled with this kind of poetry of understanding and like emotion, because at the end of the day we all experience very extreme things as human beings constantly. And no matter where you are, even though we speak from a place of like a very privileged position in Norway, but everyone passed through at some point this kind of isolation, who some people are still passing through, but this being forced to like not fill your time and therefore experiencing time differently, to be inside observing the world outside, and to also in a sense of understanding what's happening, like tracking scientific facts to make sense of it, looking at graphs, like clinging to the kind of things that maybe could make sense, even though no one really knows exactly, no one can tell you exactly, you know, what's normal and what's not. You have a voice that speaks the days of the week, in sort of in sections of week, 7 days, the date and the weather, as a kind of verse, let's say, or a chorus almost. And then you have sections of field recordings, landscapes, soundscapes that often are triggered by someone opening a door or window. So you have the sense of observing something from the inside and out, or even just being an observer in a busy moment, but no one addresses you. You're just like drifting through space. I have been collecting phrases or expressions or words that are used to describe weather in various languages, that I think, again, with this kind of language that is very concrete but also very poetic, because I think humans always add like poetry and humor to words, which is very beautiful. And words like, even the German Blühbeginn, like the beginning of flowering, Blühbeginn, sort of this moment when everything starts to bloom. Or Affenhitze, which is very like sort of monkey heat, which has very much this kind of, you know, sense of someone in Europe describing something that, like another type of heat that is foreign to them. So it has this kind of like, not ignorance, but this sort of distance, and like it has so much cultural weight, these different words that you use. Norwegian, we use the word tropenatt, tropical night, when it's hotter at night than normal because we don't have those kind of nights. And then you have sort of cat ice, which I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but to me it's like, it's so thin that if a cat walks on it, it cracks. I don't know if that's what it means, but it sounds like that to me. So there's this imagery is very, I think is really nice. And I've been collecting those words, and they are spoken throughout the work in that sense of creating those kind of images, let's say.
2nd of January 2020.
So the work starts with a recording of a cicada, which sings between dusk and dawn, or between night and day, like when the light shifts from one to the other, early morning or afternoon. And also, I was told when recording it, only sings once to attract a mate and then dies. So it is this like symbol as well of a kind of like intensified, boiled down moment of time, let's say. And the light of the work, I have collaborated with a light designer, or like someone who does light for film or works with light for stage and film, Paul Toft Iversen, who has set like the illusion, let's say, of a low, warm sunlight, afternoon sunlight. And when you enter the gallery, you kind of see the backstage of that on the outside, as in a form of a scaffolding and a light rig. And that was also important, to have this outside-inside difference and this kind of artifice, machinery that is made to create some heightened moment inside that is like clean and clear of that artifice. That is the illusion somehow. So and the prints, which is another work, let's say, but of course a total installation called with the title Soft Weather, are photographs of recently accidented or cars that have been hit by an impact, let's say, that has released the airbag or smashed the front window. And so, yeah, they're printed on silicone, soft silicone, and draped over these aluminum structures that are made from aluminum that has been bent. It's an impact, but it's softened somehow, and it has this feeling of like a very like violent moment, but looked at from different angles and kind of suspended enough for you to be able to step back and see it from the outside. And the softness of the material, with also the hardness of the aluminum, which is importantly also hit by this low orange light, which gives them maybe more warmth, like less dead feeling somehow, like the warmth of flesh, let's say, or glow. And it's a 6-channel installation that I've also chosen to work with the speakers outside, the speaker elements, not being in the box, the speaker box, because I like this kind of carpet of sound, like that the sound is sort of a wash around you, or like it lies in the air. But if you move closer to one speaker, it becomes sharper and into focus. So I think it has, to me personally, it has this sense of almost like you're drifting, and then you sort of come into focus, and then you're drifting again. And I was talking about earlier, but yeah, reminding me of this Tom Waits song quote is the air was wet with sound, like when sound is sort of heavy in the air somehow. That I think is also very present in this imagery of the cicada in the beginning and like carries through the work from there.
January 2020. Sunny, passing clouds, clear. 9th of January 2020. Sunny with passing clouds.